Hey guys, David here with Varese Media, and I don't know about you, but I really like the look of this talking head shot. The only potential problem is the choice of head. In fact, it's one of my favorite looks across both crop and full frame ecosystems. So today we are talking about the lens which provides it, and that is the Sigma 30mm f1.4, both a strong studio stalwart and simultaneously a potential proponent of sumptuously sensational cinematic scenes. We are going to cover everything from bokeh to build quality and autofocus to awesome footage examples, but just before diving in, if you enjoyed the video, then please do like, subscribe, comment, and check out the affiliate links to support the channel and help keep it going. With that said, let's start with the key facts. The 30mm f1.4 is a cropped format lens, so you need to multiply that focal length by 1.5 times on Sony systems to get the full frame equivalent field of view, which is 45mm for all you maths fans. The f1.4 of the name is of course our maximum aperture and should provide big bokeh and lustrous low light, as we will cover later, while the minimum aperture of f16 gives a solid range to let you regulate exposure or maximize your focal depth as you wish. Pricing varies, so hit up the affiliate links for the latest, but you'll typically see this lens from £250 to £300 new in the UK, making it very competitively priced, even compared to Sigma's other f1.4 crop lenses, and you'll find a review of the 16mm Sigma linked below. Looks interesting so far, right? Well, now is a good time to move on to the looks that this lens can provide, considering both bokeh and focal length, or the combination of the two, which I call bofocale length, though perhaps that name needs a bit more work. But the looks that this lens can provide do not need much work at all. While an f1.4 aperture on a crop lens gives a depth of field equivalent to f2.1 in full frame terms, full explanation of that down in the description, the actual results here, combined with the compression that you get from the 45mm focal length, can be stunning. Bokeh rolls off superbly smoothly between in and out of focus areas and creates a beautiful blur in backgrounds, which is reminiscent of a nice watercolor painting. This nicely emphasizes and contrasts the sharply defined and detailed subject while retaining an overall natural look. And if you use the decent but not insanely close minimum focus distance of around 17.5 centimeters, you can definitely get some dramatic results and some modestly majestic makeshift macro mix-ups. You can also achieve big bokeh balls with that kind of close focus, and they are generally well formed and attractive. There's minor imperfections and artifacting, including some slight cat's eye shaping away from center frame, but I suspect only real nitpickers will notice. The native 45mm focal length is around the normal lens range, so called because it's meant to be similar to the view that the human eye would capture, typically a nicely balanced view, wide enough to give solid background context, or a landscape broad enough to stylishly showcase selected scenery while keeping a solid compositional focus and good emphasis on the subject. This is part of why I think this lens is nice for cinematic shooting. The lens is a single focal length prime, but thanks to clear image zoom and some other crafty cropping considerations, you can actually extract some more field of view flexibility. For example, the active steady shot of the ZV-E10 crops in by 1.45 times, giving you an effective field of view of around 65mm. And if you're stacking clear image zoom on top of that, which gives you an effectively visually lossless additional zoom of up to 1.5 times, that reach extends all the way to a pretty impressive 98mm. While at the opposite end of the spectrum, using a full frame camera in non-crop mode, you can also get wider than the native 45mm, using clear image zoom at around 1.3 times to ultimately get something like a pretty usable 39mm field of view. That is a nice range of overall flexibility, though I would personally focus on the native 45mm field of view as your main starting point. Speaking of focus, manual focus is non-linear, which is usable but not ideal for video and makes repeatable focus moves trickier to execute. The focus ring itself is well sized and grippy with a nice tactile texture, but not the smoothest to maneuver, which again means it's usable but less than ideal for video shooting. On a similar theme, you will be able to see some fairly significant focus breathing if you're transitioning from closer to more distant focus, but this isn't wildly different to the focus breathing you'll see on most mirrorless camera lenses, and so while it's not ideal, it's not likely to be a deal breaker for most use cases. Autofocus, however, generally performs really great in good light, especially when paired with a recent Sony body, with both eye autofocus and touch-based focus pulls and overall tracking working very smoothly and reliably. However, the focus is a few steps off the pace in lower light and is certainly less good than its brother, the Sigma 16mm f1.4, when conditions are darker. But it does remain very solid and effective overall. Speaking of low light, that f1.4 wide aperture should deliver good low light performance, right? Well, generally it does. On the ZV-E10 you can get some great results up to and sometimes above the ISO 6400 level that I use as a rule of thumb upper limit following the detailed low light tests that I've done. Link to those in the description. Combined with the bokeh quality we touched on earlier, the 30mm can really get some pleasing, moody shots in darker conditions. And if you pair the Sigma with a full frame body that has even more high ISO performance potential, like the A7iv, you'll unlock even more low light bandwidth and potentially powerfully pleasing results. But just before we finish, I want to jump from low light to a different kind of light. What are you talking about, Dave? Well, one of the striking first impressions of the Sigma 30mm is just how compact and light it is, at 7.3 centimeters long and 265 grams. That is less than the weight of an average rat, and it's significantly less likely that this lens will carry any form of bubonic plague, which is helpful. Similarly helpful is a build quality that strikes a great balance between robustness and lightness, alongside a construction that mixes metal and rubbery plastic into a functional and fittingly fine finish. The front of the lens has a 52mm filter thread, and the rear is the standard mount, notably without any type of dust or moisture resistant sealing, which is totally forgivable at this price point, but is worth noting. So I'd avoid extreme weather shooting, but otherwise I think the lens can be a solid and reliable choice. But is it overall the best choice for you? Let's conceptualize our conclusions, but just before we do, if you've enjoyed the video, then please do like, subscribe, comment, and check out the affiliate links to help keep the channel going. And with that said, who do I think should buy this lens? Well, I'd say anyone shooting with a crop body camera and wanting excellent bokeh and a nicely balanced field of view, alongside solid low light performance and autofocus, should be considering the Sigma 30mm f1.4, especially given what I think is a pretty competitive price. In fact, I'd extend that recommendation to full frame shooters wanting a very lightweight, capable and comparatively inexpensive option for their setups. Indeed, I enjoyed this lens even more with my A7iv, thanks to that camera's superior stabilization options and the scope for that slightly wider field of view. But despite the positives, no lens is perfect. Limited weather resistance, no in-lens stabilization, and somewhat noticeable focus breathing are small compromises, but they can impact shooting experience. So if such things are very key to your use case, it's worth considering alternatives. For instance, the Sony 35mm f1.8 OSS would at least fix you up for in-lens stabilization. But for me, the Sigma 30mm f1.4 is one of my favorite and most used lenses. Let me know what you think is going to be best for you down in the comments, but even more importantly, until next time, take it easy. the native 45mm, the native 45mm, maybe I should do the rest like this. The native 45mm focal length is around the normal lens range, so called because it's meant to be similar to the view that I would capture, typically on not a bad view. That's enough of that.